Hello BookTube! This is Becky from Becky Writes, this is Becky Reads, and this is my British book haul. Those of you who've been following me on Twitter know that I spent Thanksgiving in the UK. I was in London visiting my friend Mary, and we did the Mean Girls book tag. I'll link that down below in case you missed it. And I also went to Wales to visit my friend Phil. While I was in Britain, I did some book shopping. Now, I pretty much only did my book shopping in London because I was in rural Wales and didn't have an opportunity to hit any bookstores up. But I did do some shopping at Foyles in London, and then in a really cute little place on the Kensington High Street, and then in an airport because I am a terrible person and always buy books in airports. It's a bad habit. So here are my books from the last trip. The first book is the book that I got in an airport. I actually technically bought it in California, and that was Radical Integrity, the Story of Dietrich Bonhoeffer. This is by Michael van Dyke. Now, those of you who don't know anything about Bonhoeffer, Dietrich Bonhoeffer was a Lutheran theologian and pastor during the Second World War. He got his doctorate at like 24, he ran a seminary, he pastored German-speaking churches in Britain, he studied at Union Theological Seminary in New York, and worshipped in Harlem at black churches and was very much inspired by black theology. He was just a really fascinating man who, during the Second World War, although he was a pacifist, decided that the only way that you could respond to the absolute horror and violence of Hitler and the Nazis, since the German Christians weren't doing anything about it, was to be involved in plots to try to assassinate Hitler. Yes, he was a part of several different attempts, like 4 or 5 different attempts to assassinate Hitler. All of them were foiled by different reasons, whether malfunctions or Hitler didn't show up on time or whatever. It's crazy. He ended up being arrested and taken to several different concentration camps and eventually was taken to Flossenburg, where 2 weeks before the Allies were able to secure Germany, he was shot to death. He maintained a deep religious faith throughout all of this, and his theological writings have continued to inspire Christians and theologians and moral ethicists since. If you've never heard of Bonhoeffer, this is a great book. It's barely 200 pages. It's a really quick read. They take from several of his letters and sermons, so you're getting to see some of his words and some of his actual thoughts as his life unfolds. Now, this is written on about a 6th grade reading level, so it is a very simplistic overview of the life of Bonhoeffer. But I am recommending this, and I picked this up because the other biographies of Bonhoeffer are huge. I would really suggest this. I picked this up at an airport bookstore for like 10 bucks, and this is a great overview, a great little biography of the life of Bonhoeffer, and especially right now in the United States, where we may be seeing the rise of fascism, it is really important to read about the lives of people who stood up to perhaps the most well-known fascist of the last 100 years. So, Radical Integrity, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, Michael van Dyke, pick it up. Alright, the next 3 books came from my trip to Foyles. The first one, I don't know how I heard about this book, but I found it online somewhere, but not BookTube. It sounds hilarious. Sophia Khan is Not Obliged. This is by Ayisha Malik. This sounds kind of like a Bridget Jones but Muslim kind of situation. Sophia Khan, I believe, is a magazine writer. She's a career woman. She was born and raised in Britain, and she's Muslim, and she's juggling the different identities of being sort of Muslim and British, the obligations of being Muslim and dating in a particularly Muslim fashion and in a Muslim community, and maybe not being really interested in dating, but kind of having some pressure from her family, while also being British, thoroughly independent, and kind of negotiating those. I think she ends up trying to write a story on Muslim dating, and it just sounds hilarious. It just sounds fun and cute and refreshing, and it also sounds like a book that's going to portray Muslims, not as terrorists, not simply as immigrants, not simply as sort of these caricatures, but rather the complex lives of modern Muslims living in the West, because those Muslims are real and they exist, and they don't often get their stories told. So I'm excited about this. I think it's going to be a fun read, and I cannot wait to check it out soon. The next book I picked up was The Tidal Zone by Sarah Moss. I heard about this from Jen Campbell and Jean from Jean Bookish Thoughts and Lauren from Books and Daydreams, and pretty much all the British booktubers were talking about how great this is. This is the story of a stay-at-home dad who's also, I think, writing the history of Coventry Cathedral, which was bombed during the Second World War and never rebuilt, when one of his daughters has a massive illness. Basically, she just like collapses at school and is rushed to the hospital, and sort of the fallout of that experience and sort of the guilt of that parents feel, and your identity when your child becomes ill, and what does it mean for the work that he's writing, and it just sounds incredible. This is not normally the kind of book that I would read, but the praises that so many people have sung about this is definitely made me want to pick it up. I also haven't been able to find this book or any of the books that I got from Foyles in the US. I've been looking for this in the US, I've been looking for Sophia Khan, I've been looking for the next book, and I can't find them, so I bought them at Foyles so I'd have copies. It just sounds like a stunning book. I don't tend to read sad books because, you know, the news is sad enough, but this sounds really beautiful, and I am excited to be reading it, even though I think it's going to give me feels. The final book that I got from Foyles was The Essex Serpent by Sarah Perry. First of all, can we just talk about how beautiful this cover is? I love it. It's a little busy, but I just really like this. This is the story of a woman, I believe she's a widower in the Victorian period, who moves from the city to the country, and she is a naturalist, she is a scientist, and she is hunting the legendary Essex serpent, and she meets and befriends the country vicar. And it sounds like it's the story of their friendship, it sounds like it's the story of kind of conversations about science and theology and not fitting into traditional worldviews, and all of those things are right up my alley. As someone who is a practicing Christian, I often am told that there is a disconnect between science and theology, and I don't see that. Like, I think evolution is totally fine, and I think Jesus is fine. I don't think that those things have to be mutually exclusive. So I'm curious about how those conversations play out, because this seems like it is definitely a conversation both about science and religion, but also about traditional roles, so traditional gender roles, and the sort of budding independence of women and women's place in society, both in the Victorian period and how that reflects back on today. Then I stopped by a cute, tiny little bookshop on the Kensington High Street. It's like right on the corner. This is not far from where my friend lives. I know she lives in a very posh part of London. I would never be able to live in this posh part of London, but it's nice to have friends. And I picked up A Little History of Religion by Richard Holloway. Now, you guys know that I study religion as a part of my job. I am a religion researcher, particularly religious diversity, but I'm always curious about books that kind of do mass overviews of religion, because I want to be able to recommend them to folks who perhaps are engaging with religion in a academic context for the first time, or they grew up not religious and they're curious about kind of getting a little sprinkling understanding of religion. So I am definitely wanting to pick this up very soon. This looks like it's right up my alley. Richard Holloway is a very well respected religion academic. He has written some great books, so I will be giving this a read hopefully pretty soon, and if it's good I'll do a review, so those of you who are interested will know. Alright, and the final book that I have brought back with me, although I didn't buy it, is this beautiful edition of A Christmas Carol and Other Stories by Charles Dickens. Isn't it gorgeous? It's this gorgeous cloth-bound edition that we got at Waterstones. Now, my friend Mary has godparents who still live in California, so I am being a little Santa's elf and bringing this back so I can post it for them, hopefully this week. I should probably do that this week. So there we go. These are the books that I picked up while I was in the UK. I had limited bag space, so I probably could have doubled this, but you know, I had to carry them all home with me. Comment down below and let me know what you have recently brought back from trips. Do you pick up books when you travel? And if so, what was the most recent book that you picked up while you were on vacation or traveling? Hope you guys are all doing well, and I will talk to you soon. Bye!